Are drug dogs reliable? Of course, if you ask someone in law enforcement, they love drug dogs. It often gives them a way to get into a car or a residence that they may not have otherwise had. And many people believe that drug dogs are reliable. Additionally, prosecutors know that drug dogs are often a value add at a trial. Jurors typically love hearing about drug dogs or even seeing the drug dogs come to court. So it makes the prosecutor's case more compelling. Yet over the years, what we've seen in criminal courts is that things get thrown out as junk science when they are truly inspected to see if the underlying science and the execution of using that scientific method was reliable. What we see in many cases is the actual canine search was not conducted on video. So you have someone coming in purporting to be an expert dog handler who's going to say this dog alerted and here's why. There are a lot of problems with that. First, there's not an opportunity for another person equally experienced or with greater experience to come back and review that and say, yes, this was a proper alert and we can rely on this. There's also very little that goes into contradicting that expert's opinion in many cases. A good defense attorney should challenge the dog handler's opinion. They should consider using their own experts and bringing out the evidence that talks about what are the problems in training. Does this handler truly know how to handle this dog? How do you distinguish between a false alert and a true alert? Can you even do so? As we look at the underlying science, it's important to talk about the peer-reviewed articles that have been published about the reliability of open-air sniffs, canine searches, and the reliability of canines in conducting these types of searches. For example, a peer-reviewed article that took a look at over 1,200 experimental tests involving canines found that the reliability of dog searches varied greatly based on a number of factors. One of those factors was the breed of dog that was being used. Another was the environment under which the dog was conducting the search. For example, researchers saw a difference between the reliability of searches that were conducted in places the dog had been to before versus a truly new experience the dog was going through. An additional point that was raised during this research is one that is not discussed nearly enough, and that is certain substances are far easier to detect than other substances. For example, a dog's ability to detect marijuana is going to be very different than a dog's ability to detect something like heroin or cocaine. Finally, this study took a look at false alerts, and that's important because as you put evidence through its paces in court, the judge, as the gatekeeper, has to look at the reliability of the underlying science. So it's very important to talk about the false alerts that we see when we're using canine searches when it comes to talking about the reliability of this science generally. Then the focus moves to the actual execution of that scientific method in this particular case. So that goes into the canines training, but it also goes into the handlers training. How many times have they been trained, tested, and how many false alerts are we seeing with this particular dog handler combination? Those are important things that need to be presented to the court and need to be attacked in a court setting where a search is the basis of the entire criminal case. Understand that traditionally, judges have allowed in testimony about canine searches and have often relied on the testimony of the handlers in admitting evidence into court. So you have an uphill battle. It takes attorneys continuing to fight this battle for there to be a shift in what is accepted as reliable scientific method. For example, for many years, criminal cases were built on a scientific theory based on bite marks. We now know that bite marks are not a reliable science, and it took years of attorneys challenging that purported science for it to finally not be accepted widely in criminal courts, and in fact for us to know that that is junk science. If you have a criminal case that is built on a canine search, it's important that you hire an attorney who is familiar with the methods to challenge those searches and to challenge the expert's testimony. Additionally, you need to know that the Supreme Court a couple of years ago issued an opinion that talks about how long it takes to bring a canine to the scene. So for example, if an officer pulls you over for speeding, that stop is supposed to end at the moment he issues you the citation. There was a case where that stop was prolonged past the reason for the initial stop to get a canine unit there. And the Supreme Court said you can't do that. It is common to see stops delayed for canine units, and your attorney needs to know how to challenge that and when to challenge that. Because if you can get the evidence in your case thrown out by an improper stop or an improper search or a prolonged stop, then the case crumbles and the prosecutor has nothing to convict you for. We've handled a lot of cases involving drug dogs, and we know how to challenge these cases. So if you have a case like this in North Texas, be sure to reach out.